Well, let's go ahead and kick it off, man. I want to be respectful of your time. So for everybody that's watching both live and the replay, I met Lucas Rubix probably coming up on a year ago. He was introduced to me through some mutual friends and said, hey, you guys are into a lot of the same stuff. You really should meet. So I met Lucas, got him involved in some of the stuff that we were doing with 71. We've had a lot of just great conversations, and Lucas was kind enough to come over here and speak at our first Fake Money experience. People loved him, but I really wanted the opportunity today to hear a little bit more about his story, what he was doing before crypto and DeFi and all of that, why he got into it, what he's doing now, a little bit more about crypto labs. So Lucas, man, we're excited to have you on.
Cool. Thanks, dude. You're I love what you guys are building as well, like the community and just everything you're building. I know a bit of your story as well and just the ups and downs, but it's incredible, your tenacity and your, I don't know, just commitment to the community and commitment to excellence, like even just your studio setup and everything. It's just, it's pretty cool. It inspired me. So
I appreciate it, man. Truly do. So Lucas, I know your story, or at least I think I know your story, but can you kind of fill everybody in on like, what were you doing before you kind of dove into being an entrepreneur, being self-employed? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think pretty typical story in terms of born in Italy in a refugee camp as a baby. I don't know what that did to my programming, but my parents were refugees. They were immigrants here in Canada. And the whole immigrant story, hardworking dad, hardworking mom, I picked up those genes for better or worse. At some point in entrepreneurship, that starts being a curse more than a blessing. And I have to learn how to undo that and let other people work hard while I think. But anyways, so working hard 18 hours a day, 7 days a week is not hard for me. That's just my natural state. So I think the interesting thing, the one thing I highlight is, I think I was getting in trouble in like grade 1 or 2. I was throwing rocks, like whipping rocks at kids because they were trying to put me on medication, like ADD, ADHD, all that kind of stuff. And my parents were like, nope, he's a kid. He's got a lot of energy. And the school I was in was just a public school, big school. And my parents wanted me to go to a private school. In Europe, that was like the norm. Like you went to small schools where the teachers actually worked with the child and not just, they actually personalized the experience. So there was this school. It wasn't a super booze school, but it was a private school. Classes were like 20 people and they couldn't afford it. I think it was about $1,000 a month. So my dad fixed the buses for the school and my mom drove the buses. So they kind of worked for the school for free, and that got me my tuition. And I think they meant well, and the school was great. If I had kids and I had to put them in school, I'd put them to a smaller school because at least the teachers were like, they'd work with you through your problems. But what was really interesting is most of the kids there had money, at least from my perspective. They were driving, Land Rovers, and they were just rolling up in cars that I thought were completely unattainable. And when I went to someone's house, like a 5-bedroom, we lived in a trailer park, a 5-bedroom house was like a mansion to me. Like I was like a pool in the backyard, like I couldn't believe it. And so I kind of got bullied. I always felt sort of like an outcast, and I really hated people with money because of it. And it probably explains why I had so much work to do around my money mindset and how I looked at finances. And it's my strong suit now, and it's what I teach, it's what I talk about all the time. So it's interesting how when you look back, it's like everything connects to create the person you are today. So I had an interesting relationship with money, but went on the oil rigs after high school because I wanted to make bank to be like those kids, and the oil rigs was the only job I could get. So at 19, went up there, did the blue collar thing for 6 years or so, and then I realized my body was tired and I wanted to do something else. And that is a long story made short into my next jump, which was entrepreneurship.
Wow. Probably around the same time we lived in Montana, and I remember like that was the thing, was like if you made it, you were working on the oil rigs.
Right.
And I don't know about Canada, but I mean there was 18, 19-year-old kids driving the newest trucks. They had made it. And a lot of these kids, made a lot more money than their parents did, and were kind of like the first in their family to accomplish something.
Yeah.
But like you said, it was so short-lived because they all ended up broke at some point. They would get hurt. Something would happen to them physically because it is a demanding job.
Yeah.
And they would go from making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to, I have nothing to fall back on.
Yeah.
Not only do I have nothing to fall back on, I can now no longer afford the lifestyle that I was trying to attain.
Yeah.
So they basically end up in pre-foreclosure. But these guys had sometimes multiple houses. The four-wheelers skateboards, the dirt bikes, the everything.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you say that, because like I remember that vividly, being in eastern Montana, so close to like the Bakken and like all of these different oil fields. It's interesting that you did that. So your body was kind of throwing a fit, so to say, and you said, look, I want to like work smarter. Like what was the decision?
I mean, my
there?
body was okay. I was 25. Like I had a lot of energy. I was really into working out. I was about 210 pounds. And I was super, super lean. Like that was my coping mechanism with, I was going through a really deep depression. I just didn't know it at the time. I remember being on planes. I remember having a therapist and I was like, I don't know how to feel. Like I don't feel anything. Like it was a really weird place. But I remember I think the moment was, because you're in the bush for 3 weeks straight, and it was 2 flights to get there. It was way in northern Canada, so it's like minus 40 Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit. It's cold as F.
It's
like
cold.
It sucks. And in the summer, you're in 50 degree, like 120 degree weather, and you're just slinging. Like it's just, you're using a body. So I remember super, super depressed. Didn't know it. I just thought that's how life was. I was the dude who would shut down people's dreams. If someone was like, I'm gonna do something, I'm like, that'll never work. Like complete opposite of who I am now. But anyway, so I'm sitting in this circle of dudes on the rigs. We're smoking. I was drinking, and I was doing. Everyone on there is on drugs, painkillers typically, because it's not so visible and you can't smell it. So we're popping those. I'm having a cigarette. So weird looking at that person. And there's maybe 5 or 6 guys standing in a circle, all older than me, in their 40s, 50s. I'm 25, and they're all miserable about their lives. They've got broken marriages. Their kids don't know who they are. They're cheating on their current wives or girlfriends with prostitutes up on the rigs, hookers below, all that. And I kind of looked around and I was like, if I stay here, that's going to be me most likely. And like, I don't want that to be me. I'm like a really, really good dude with ambition. Like that's not who I want to be. And I think it just made sense. Like if I stay here, that is my fate. I just bought a condo in Vancouver, which you may as well buy a house with the money I paid. And I remember just nothing was logical about my decision, but I quit. 6 months later, I had to sell the house at a loss after all the closing fees and the taxes. Like I did not make money off that thing, but I couldn't afford it. Had a brand new BMW, had to sell that. And I ended up in a basement suite in North Vancouver for $600 a month. And I bought a sick ass mountain bike because at least I wanted to look sick. It was like a full suspension mountain bike so I could ride it to the grocery store. But I was so much happier, dude. Like I remember sitting in that there was a family above with a small kid, and the kid would be running around sometimes. My windows for my basement suite face the backyard. And by all definitions, like zooming out, I should have been miserable because I lost all my stuff. But I was waking up every day and pursuing something that for once in my life I wanted to, which was personal training. I was getting my certification, and I figured I kind of know about health and fitness, so I may as well teach it. Maybe I could make $50 an hour with private clients or something. But I remember sitting there and everyone around me was like, oh, I'm sorry this happened. And I remember being like, no, like I'm so happy right now. And I think that's when I realized that money wasn't the answer. It was pursuing a worthy, like something I wanted to, like pursue a passion. And the external world has really little to do with it. And so I just kind of made that the focus of, am I in alignment with who I want to be every single day as best as I can? And am I taking some step towards what I actually want? And when I started finding pleasure in that, that's, I think, when I kind of hit my stride, started getting some one-on-one clients. I was traveling to their home to do their training with them, typically rich, women or wives or whatever, total typical type stuff here, but they wanted to work out, go to their house. North Vancouver is like the wealthy part of Vancouver, and we'd work out. And that's kind of where it started, of like working with clients. And then that turned into an online business, lifestyle business, and kind of everything went from there.
So you said something that is really in alignment with what we teach here, and that is, if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive.
Right.
So you can relate that to whatever you want to relate that to. I mean, that could be with your health, it could be with relationships, it could certainly be with your occupation, even investing. Like I have been making so many more decisions based on, does it bring me peace?
So good.
Because there's a lot of stuff you can do, especially in this space, to make money that will cost you your peace. And at the end of the day, you were happier in a basement apartment than you were probably making significantly more. So
like $2 or $3 grand a month.
Yeah, I mean, like that is very much in alignment. How did the crypto stuff come into play? So you're doing fitness, you've got the online stuff.
Yep.
Had you always been interested in crypto, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I got into marketing, as most people did who saw the opportunity, because I was doing it full time for the fitness business. First client ever is Yoshko, good buddy. Well, not good buddy, an acquaintance who we meet up and shoot guns here and there, but really good guy. And he was one of my first clients who reached out to me being like, so back in the day, you could run an ad and probably get about $1 lead. And I could reach probably a couple million people on Facebook for $1,000 or $2. It was geo-targeting, local targeting. So for my fitness brand, I was targeting all of Vancouver. There's only a couple million people here. So everybody started seeing my face and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was sending an ad to click to a Facebook Messenger, which you could do back in the day. And that would start a conversation. And then I'd close the client, we'd work together, whatever. And so trainers in the area were pretty upset because I had the most basic certification, the 3-month certification. Most of them had freaking PhDs and 6 years of schooling. I just started in Vancouver and I was fully booked and I was selling clients to other trainers. These guys were doing it for like 20 years. And I was getting a lot of hate from like local kind of gyms and just being like, who is this guy who's just blah, blah, blah. And fair enough. They were probably better trainers than me, but I needed the money. So built that thing to well into the 6-figure mark, which was a lot of money for me back then. And Yoshko was one of the first guys who reached out. He was a trainer in Vancouver and asked like, hey, could you help me kind of do what you're doing? And I thought, okay. And he's like, what would you charge? And I think I said like 1,000 a month or something. Like, I'll work with you with 1,000 a month. And he said, yup. And that was like 3 times more than what I could get from a personal training client. And it was way easier work for me. Like, I didn't have to physically be there. I didn't have to be creating nutrition plans online or whatever. So I said, okay, that worked really well. I really liked it. And so I started building kind of marketing business, not knowing what I was doing, but it worked. And I first worked with trainers, that expanded into more coaches, consultants, anything. Rode the wave because we all know how that was exploding over the internet over the last 5-6 years. So rode that wave, really right place, right time. Built that into the 6-figure monthly income from a nice season. So stacking cash. I didn't know what to do with it. It's the first time in my life where I'm like sitting on a ton of cash. I remember Taylor Welch, who I know you know, was kind of like, dude, like you have a fear here. Like you're still in kind of scarcity. Like you're still in the old rig mentality of like hoarding your money. Like go do something with it. So I started buying gold. I started buying really safe assets. Then COVID happened, which we won't get into the politics, but I was not a fan. And the truckers convoy happened, which I think you know about. And I donated money from my personal bank account and my corporate account to hopefully give these guys some nice warm coffees, Tim Hortons, and hopefully a nice little meal in their truck there. I really supported their cause. And when I started seeing the news come out of like freezing bank accounts and Canada was freezing people's bank accounts if you donated to this legal cause, I was like, there's something very wrong here. I was already kind of studying crypto and DeFi. I just wasn't really in it because I wasn't heavily invested in it. If you invest your money into something, you start paying attention. So we left Canada because they shut down the flights. So we left Canada in October, right before the flight shut down. We lived in Mexico and I sold all the gold and I bought Bitcoin because I figured that was the next closest thing and seemed to make sense. Bought a bunch of Bitcoin, made a ton of mistakes with some stable coin, UST, bunch of mistakes, but most of my holdings were in Bitcoin. And because I had a fairly large sum of money in there, at least for me, I think I put like 300 grand and that was over a 2-month period of time. Like banks were like, wow, what is happening? And I was like, I don't want to use you guys. Like I'm taking my money on.
What is this guy do? What is this guy doing?
And they fought it, dude. Like every transaction to Newton, which was my exchange, was getting blocked. Like they were not happy with it. But anyway, and when I had that amount of cash, which for me was a lot, I started really studying it, being like, I should probably understand what I'm investing in here. And the fascination of blockchain and what I think in 10 years, how it'll affect most industries and most people, it'll be like the internet, at least I believe that, which would, I kind of have a thesis around it. So that was kind of how I got into it. And then while I was in Mexico, my business was crashing. The marketing kind of business and the coaching business was crashing. I wasn't really interested in it anymore. Was having a hard time. We were kind of butting heads with my right hand. We split ways. Business just kind of tanked. It was like 20K a month. And I had a team kind of running it, enough for me to survive. And most of my money started coming in from crypto and DeFi back in the node days, back in the days where it was pretty easy to get some kind of return. But I was making more money in that than I was running a business while sitting on a beach in Mexico clicking buttons. So that kind of got me fascinated with it. And then it was my dad who was like, I see what you're doing. Could you start a hedge fund? Like, could I invest money? And I was like, Dad, I'm not taking your money because I don't feel confident to do so. I'm exploring this just like everyone else. Like the space hasn't been around enough for me to think of myself as an expert. So I just started sharing what I was doing. And that led into a lot of our past clients saying, could you show me what you're doing? And that eventually led into a membership. That was most of the things I've built, dude, have just been from, people are interested. Let's see if it works. Yeah. Like I've never had a business plan for anything. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's how I've always built. build things. It's just demand.
So you've mentioned, I don't even know if you realize this, you mentioned I don't know what I'm doing 3 different times. With the fitness stuff, with the marketing, and then with the crypto stuff, you said I didn't know what I was doing. So how does somebody that truly doesn't know what they're doing, kind of wings it, how does somebody like that find success in 3 completely different industries?
Just like when we connected, I was joining everything I could on people who were also in this space. So let me join 1971. Let me join, there's a blockchain insights group. Let me just find anyone who's in this space. They're learning it as much as I am. Like that, it just hasn't been around for long enough for almost, maybe if you've been in this space for 8 years, you could probably start calling yourself an expert. I think most people are leading through the space, which is, I think, of massive value to follow people like that. So anyone I could, I reached out to, joined their stuff, went through the educational stuff, probably read 15 thick books on how blockchain works, understood maybe 10% of it, but enough for me to really grasp the concept. In fitness, Jim Deal was one of the best trainers in Vancouver, worked with the highest athletes, and I got a membership at his gym, and I asked him if I could shadow him or work with him for free once or twice a week. He said yes, of course, so I helped him train his clients, and I watched exactly how he did things. And that helped me get good really, really quick on how he structured his sessions and how he even communicated with his clients. He was a genius. So did that for 3 months, shadowed him for free and helped him clean up the weights and mop the gym or whatever. And in marketing, joined every mastermind, every program I could to accelerate, just get around people who actually know more than you. And through osmosis, I think you pick it up. I don't think anyone's ever ready. Like, I don't think if you had to wait to be ready, you'd have to wait probably 10 years. And then maybe you could come out and be like, okay, I'm an expert here. But
yeah, it's although different, like our journeys are so similar. Like it's not even ironic because I think there's a lot of people that I would consider successful that have had a similar experience and story like us.
Yeah.
So I did the same thing. Like when I dove into real estate, I did the same thing. Like I hired guys that were smarter than me that had accomplished something that I wanted to accomplish. When I jumped into DeFi, I probably joined less groups than you, but I just consumed, and like I would consume something, I would put it into action. Watch another video, put it into action. So in the course of 5 days, I was accomplishing what people weren't accomplishing in 6 months because I would consume and then take action.
Right.
So there's something to be said for that part of your story that I think is important, dude. Like you just figured it out, and you invested some money into learning, which nobody seems to want to do anymore. And you got around the right people, got the right tools, and then you took massive action. And I think that's what a lot of people are lacking.
Yeah, I mean, even come to think about it, because we want to acquire a business or two. I've been really serious about that for the last 6 months. So I read every book I could, have a good understanding of, if I look at financials of a company over the last 4 years, I can really understand the story from the numbers. And I think the next step is I've just been reaching out to people who are in the game, and I'm literally don't have the time yet, but come end of the year, I'm going to fly out and shadow someone for 2 weeks as they do deals, as they hustle. And I'll just say, dude, I'll vacuum your car mats after a long day, like whatever, just put me to use here for 2 weeks. I'll work with you for free, but can I see how your team is structured, how the deal flow happens? Like, how do you run this thing? And then I think we'll get into I'd like to get into our first deal early next year. And I won't know what I'm doing, but hopefully I'll make enough connections to call someone saying, hey, this is happening, I'm not sure. So I think people have this belief that they have to know everything. Yep. And I think of that. I was on a Lark Davis interview on his Twitter Spaces a little 2-3 days ago. He hosted me on there, which was a super awesome gift. And he asked me a few questions where I'm like, I literally don't know, but I do know a guy named Davis, and Davis is now part of our team, and I can just ask him and he'll know the answer to that. So I think like that Henry Ford thing of, he's got the 12 telephones on his desk, however true that is. And he's got the best, he was apparently in court or something because they were trying to remove him as CEO. And the judge was like, what makes you capable of running a company when you know very little, you're not educated, you don't really know a lot about cars? And he's like, well, I've got the best chassis designer on the phone here. I've got the world's best electrical engineer. I've got the world's best engine builder. I'll just call them and ask. And I was like, okay, if you want to build something big, I think you have to have specialized knowledge in something, but everything else, if you try to control all of that, you're done. At least I think.
We just had a video that launched, I think it was yesterday, about like, I am not an expert in real estate. I know that this conversation is more about crypto, but the video stands true as like, I do not understand fully real estate contracts. bucks. I'm not the best negotiator. I'm not the best marketer. Like there's probably even students of mine, and I know you would agree with this. Like, there's students of mine that probably technically know more than I do. So how am I qualified to be successful? Well, on the real estate side, like I have a great general contractor. I have a great attorney. I have a great title company that handles all of the paperwork. I didn't have 12 phones on my desk, but like it's the same thing where like you just need to have drive, which is probably our superpower, and the ability to make the right connections and probably humble yourself a little bit and say, I don't know everything, but you know more than I do. So let's do this. Like, why don't I figure out a way to add value to you? And in exchange, you can maybe transfer some of that knowledge. So
Totally.
I think there's something to be said for that, man. And
Dude,
I
100%.
think that part of like what you're talking about is, I think it's really underrated.
And everyone slams on those guys. Like, I don't know much about real estate, and maybe this is the wrong person to bring up here, but I remember seeing Grant Cardone's story from Hustling Sales Guy. Like this is 10 years ago or 9 years ago.
Yep.
I think I picked up one of his early books, and I always saw him as, I don't know him personally. We had him on the podcast and I got an hour with him, but I still don't know him. But even talking to him, I'm like, this dude's really only good at one thing, sales and marketing. I wonder how good he is at everything else. And that really doesn't matter. And he gets slammed a lot for being like, that he's not as knowledgeable in sales as someone else, but he's a really good marketer and he probably hires really good sales guys. Maybe Jordan Belfort and their little beef. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's not the sales guy Jordan Belfort is, but he's the marketer. He's got great sales team, great real estate team, great everything. Great graphic designers, great videographers, and he just does his one thing, which he's really good at marketing, and he doubles down on that hardcore and has built
100%.
an almost $1 billion portfolio. Like it's pretty incredible.
I don't know if you've watched, there's a show called Undercover Billionaire.
Right, I've heard of it. I haven't
Seasons
seen
of it. So Grant Cardone was on the second season, and like the whole thing, there was 3 of them. They dropped them in a city they've never been to with, I think it's like $50 or $100 to their name, a cell phone with no contacts in it, and they have to go out and create $1 million company from nothing. And if they don't, they have to donate $1 million. So watching Grant Cardone, and like, not to go off on a rabbit trail here, but watching Grant Cardone in that element where he had nothing. He had no team. He had no videographer other than the people that were doing the show. But dude, like to your point, like he tried a bunch of stuff in the very beginning of that show that completely failed. And he was like, what am I doing? Like my superpower is sales and marketing. So he went out and did that. And I think he had like, I don't know, they have 90 days total and he had like 30 days left and he was able to do it. And he started selling for people and he started marketing for people. And through that came all of these other opportunities. But he tried things that he weren't in his lane,
right.
And he tried things that he wasn't even good at, reverted back to, and it was really cool to watch. Like highly recommend. If you guys haven't watched it, both seasons are good. So it's Undercover Billionaire. I found it on Amazon Prime. Definitely check that out. But it proves that somebody can start with $50 or $100 and make it if they have a skill set. I think a lot of people have $50 or $100 to their name right now trying to make it, but they haven't attained a skill set yet. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah,
so you eventually, through your dad and some of your clients, you eventually started Crypto Labs, which I know like we have a little bit of like cross communities, like some of our guys, Crypto Labs, and maybe some people from Crypto Labs I think are in 71.
Cool.
A lot of people are seeing results. I've met people on your team that are just great, but what would make Crypto Labs different? There's a lot of different discords and groups. Like, what is Crypto Labs? What kind of sets it apart? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm going to be biased here because it's mine, but I feel what we do and probably what you guys do, which is why we're here probably talking, is to me, the investing is so secondary or third. It's like the level of personal development and professional development and strategic thinking and learning how to think and, reverse engineering with the end in mind. That's the hardest work we can possibly do. Like, it's hard for me, dude. I spent 30 minutes this morning prepping our next month. It was horrible. And I still have a couple hours left to do on the weekend. Like, I don't like planning. I like just taking action and getting crazy. Like, that's the fun stuff for me. And I think we see a lot of that in crypto. So I feel like if you're building something and you really inject yourself into it, it will just be different in and of itself. So we kind of attract more entrepreneurial sort of hustlers who that is our perfect client. Most other types of members, plus ours is just a monthly membership with no contract or anything like that. So I feel aligned with that because I stopped enjoying taking large sums of money from people when they were just dipping their toes into something and then seeing them realize it's not for them and then knowing that they're out a substantial amount of money. So we wanted to build Crypto Labs as a really kind of low ticket item. I was like, if we get 100 members, it's worth keeping. We got, I think, 250 members really, really quick. We've been kind of fluctuating around that for now. So it fills me and it fills my need, desired, like it fills my cup and it's good for clients and it's good for teams. So it's a win all three ways. So we kind of track when members come in, who leaves, and then I kind of look them up, be like, who were they? And the ones who leave aren't literally a perfect client. The ones who stay for a long time are perfect clients. And again, they're kind of, they enjoy conversations around God or around universal principles or around entrepreneurship. Or now we have a monthly mastermind we're holding now called the Business of Blockchain, where we literally seek out opportunities in Web3, because I think a lot of our members and probably your clients and members are going to go on to potentially build businesses or consult for the big migration of Web2 to Web3. And these legacy businesses who are scrambling to get NFTs set up for their employees, like they're going to be scrambling to get on board. And I'm like, everyone here has more knowledge than the general public on this. So you can literally build a business around it. And you could probably build, there's going to be $1 million agencies for Web3 build. There already is, but it's going to be
100%.
As sexy as the whole marketing agency, social media agency thing 5-6 years ago. And it's going to be easy to build because you're positioning yourself ahead of the curve. And when the demand comes, you're just sitting there ready to scoop it all. So I think that's what kind of makes us potentially different. We're also not on Discord, never have been. We don't emoji and we don't find moonshots and moon coins. And we're pivoting, I think, like most of these spaces who actually care for the members and clients away from what most people call DeFi, but it's really centralized. There's a few people in charge of some project and they make decisions and they crash and burn it. We have a true DeFi group coming out next week, which is all Davis is running it. It's all yield farming, liquidity pools, concentrated liquidity pools, like true DeFi yields, which is going to be awesome to have. And we have a little side hustle section coming as well. So people looking to potentially be in control of their income. So, I mean, it's constantly evolving based upon what people need and want. And that's my only job, is to figure out what do people want and let's build it. So we have a lot of flexibility in what we build there.
That's probably like your ace, because the space changes quickly, dude. Like, I don't know if you remember, like a year ago is completely different than it is today. And last month it's even different than it is this month. It's so people have given me a hard time, and I'm sure you've even gotten it. They're like, dude, you don't even really teach crypto. I'm like, yeah, I know. And that's why like our crypto group is so good, because like I'm not a crypto expert. I don't even think you're a crypto expert.
Yeah, totally.
But what we do is we have experience in both life and business that have allowed us to build companies that are somewhat sustainable. We have the ability to pivot. We have the ability to create and build and like flex like our creative muscles to accomplish what we want to accomplish. So most of what I teach in 71, and I'm assuming in Crypto Labs as well, is like we call it building better businesses and creating better investors. It's that, because if we can get people to be better investors and probably think like the 1%, they're going to start taking advantage of different opportunities, and it's not going to be necessarily dollar signs and percentages. It's going to be 5-year, 10-year, 15-year decisions made today, which is where the money's at, right? 100%. So it's somewhat comical that like we both have focused on what people need at the time, but not so much like here's how you honor it. I mean, 100%. Guys, you can figure that out. You can figure that out for free. You don't need Lucas or me to figure that out. You can jump on YouTube, but that's not the problem. Most people really do not know how to run a business or be a great investor.
That's that. Yeah, I think it's why we're so aligned. And it's the only reason I stay in this space. If we weren't teaching that, I would have left a long time ago, because you can YouTube projects, you can look up free, what are they called? People have their own little, it's not a Discord, it's not a Notion, but anyway, they're boards to see the picks they have. And it's like, that's the easy part. The strategies are typically the easy part of anything. It's always, why is one person able to see success over and over in everything they do? And why are most people not able to do that? So I think it's always the person. And then I also think it's like, I guess we're aligned with that too, because you said, if it doesn't bring me peace, it's a no. And I guess I kind of have the same philosophy of like my joy. If I'm not waking up in the morning, not every day, but I'm saying if I'm not living 90% of my life excited and in love with my life and in love with the challenges and in love with who I'm becoming, and I'm staying in integrity with who I desire to be, I'm happy. Happiness
Yeah.
is kind of a fleeting thing, but you get my point. And I think a lot of people are so crisscrossed in how they're living their life, and they're in zero alignment, and they're miserable. And I know just from my short stint of the rigs that money and the home and the car and everyone telling me you're so successful, and my parents being proud of me because I got a home apartment. And I was like, dude, I was so miserable. Like I don't know, that was my darkest time. And so
Yeah.
it's like, do you want that? Or do you want to be completely satisfied and happy with who you are, which means you could be with nothing. You could be you could lose everything, but love who you are, stay disciplined, stay consistent, love your body, love yourself, love how you show up in the world. And if you got that, like that can't be taken away from you. And now everything you
Yeah.
build on top of that, and every car you drive, and every watch you buy, and every dollar that hits your bank account is just a bonus. And it will come and go. Like, maybe like there's ebbs and flows in business and in finance, and like you go through losses, but you no longer identify so closely with it. You don't jump off a building because you lost your net worth like so many people do, which is unfortunate.
I mean, how many times have we lost money in projects? I mean, that is not a definition of success. It's not finality, and it truly doesn't change like my peace or even my happiness because of how I've invested and because of
Totally.
how I've chosen to live my life, which is something that a lot of people can't say. We probably see it a lot where like people are freaking wrecked mentally, emotionally, financially, if a project succeeds or doesn't, but that's not how we do it. So there's something to be said there, but I want to just briefly touch on one more thing before I let you go. I know we've been going for about 40 minutes here.
Dude, I'm good.
The other thing that we're doing that I want to talk a little bit about is like we're both somewhat obsessed about figuring out how do we blend the physical and the digital together. Like you mentioned, like you're looking at like purchasing businesses. We've talked about real estate. You mentioned gold, which is something I'm really, really big in. Like I built my own bank using gold. So there's this alignment that I don't think it's a mistake that we're both like playing in this world where it's not all digital and it's not all physical, because it can't be. So like, do you have anything like maybe to add to that? Because like we're both looking at digital supports physical and physical supports digital, and like they're blended. And like I think the people that are really gonna succeed over the next decade are gonna truly hit that nail on the head with both. Like, what do you think about that? Like,
I think you know a lot more about it than me. I'm actually really, I keep telling Colin, I'm like, dude, we got to dive into Jordan's gold bank stuff, because that really, really interests me. I understand the concept, but not the details. But I think being in the online space, if the barrier of entry to something is low, then you're kind of in a dangerous spot, because you're going to have to be innovating and constantly building, and it's going to be a job, which is fine. You got to create cash flow somehow. So if the barrier of entry into some crypto project, if the barrier of entry into this or that is low, I think there's a lot of money to make, because our margins sometimes are like, I have months where it's 80% margin. Like, it's ridiculous, but I'm not deluded to think it's stable for the next 20, 25 years, like a lot of crypto projects. Like I don't even see Bitcoin as a 25-year thing. I see it year to year, like what's happening and what's BlackRock doing, and what's happening behind the scenes, which will blow your mind with some of the behind the scenes stuff that's been leaked around BlackRock manipulating the markets, which they've probably always done. But anyway, so to me, my next step, my big mistake when I was sitting on all that cash, and I'm always open about this, was I put it all into digital things, and I lost about half of it. It was probably about the accountant still needs the numbers here, so it brings me pain when I think about this, but I'm sure it was to the tune of over 300 grand, which to me, I'm like, okay, that's a fair amount of money. What can I learn from this? You put it all into digital things. You should have moved it into more physical, longer term. And if I knew what I know now, it would have been 100% businesses, and it would have been 100% real estate. But with what I know now, it would have been partnering up with one or two people who are getting into really, really big deals. Now that I know that, our cash engines have started back up. We've been stacking cash, and next year is kind of the year that I really, really want to get into more of the move some of that cash off the blockchain and off the internet and more into physical stuff. So I know it's kind of a hot topic, but like the boring business idea is just like something that is high margin, low, 2-3 people running this thing. It's been around for the last 50, 60 years. It will be around for the next 30, 40 years. And I've probably signed 4 or 5 NDAs over the last 2 months, really getting in the game of looking through these financials, understanding how these businesses work. So when we want to jump on it, we can jump on it. Last step is getting a relationship with some banks so I can get the financing I need, which I don't think should be a problem, but either way.
Remind me of, I'll make an introduction to like my business broker. They're constantly finding like off-market businesses that no one else knows about. So remind me to do that.
Cool.
But
So many
we get
opportunities
into,
too, like so many.
dude,
Like everywhere I go now,
especially right now.
I started thinking like in terms of I've always thought because I'm the trailer park dude who hustled his face off. I always look at the hard work, but I had a mentor last year who started helping me see, training me to see when you become an entrepreneur. I think you start training yourself to see how can I create value here, which is a really good skill to have. I'm always thinking that way, but now it's like how can you structure deals? How can you put 3 or 4 things together and sell it? And so I'm starting to train my brain to be like, there's a deal. Ooh, what if I could put this together? And like starting to train my brain to think deals, because I think that's the next level of money making is thinking deals.
Yeah, dude. And like you start learning about like subject to, seller financing, like all of like there's 5 different really, really creative ways to buy a business that most people don't know.
Right.
But back to something you were saying just a minute ago was like I see people either generating cash in digital, transferring to physical, which is it's gonna be more stable. But I've also seen people do it the reverse, where they have a really successful like physical business, like a clothing shop or real estate or whatever, and that is the rock, and that is the thing that's like covering all of their expenses.
Right.
They're taking the overflow from that, going into digital, kind of rinse and repeat. Like I'm earning good money here, put it into the digital where I get a higher return and I funnel it back in.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways. And I think the fact that you guys are thinking like that and that we're thinking like that, I think it's going to create kind of like a new breed of like entrepreneur where, and we know how to do both and we can thrive in both because we have the right principles and the right backbone to truly operate in that.
Right.
So I'm excited, dude. Like the next 48 months, I mean, like I'm really excited, dude. It's gonna be wild.
I'm really excited to watch it. But then you also said returns. Like when I started crunching numbers on some of these businesses, there was this really cool health and fitness location that has so much room for expansion. Like they do some cold therapy, they do like alternative medicine, stuff like that. Looked at their business, they're asking way too much, and the owners are the ones selling it, so they don't really understand its true worth. They're overvaluing it by like 200 grand. Yep. So I gotta keep working them and have them realize they're asking too much based upon the SDE and like what they're actually earning. But anyways, when I actually crunch the numbers, a lot of these businesses, I'm like, so you're telling me I can put 10% down, get that much leverage, and with the right business and a little bit of marketing, like some of these businesses, I could see 300% return on my initial deposit in the first 12 months. Like that is not a small return on your money. That's a very large return. I mean, you're putting that business, it would be maybe like 10% down, maybe 25, 30 grand down, finance the rest of it, and structured properly and filling 1 or 2 small little gaps. Like you could see 300%. And a lot of these businesses, you can do that if you look at like SDE, what are they selling the multiple of, and what's the minimum down, and what skill set do I have? I'm just like, the returns are more than DeFi if structured properly.
100%. And then when you go to sell it, you also have the multiplier. And dude, it's stupid. But dude, we could go on for literally hours. Like you're one of those guys that I could just talk to forever. For the sake of time, we won't do that today. But dude, I would love to have you back on at some point. If you ever need us to come over and like add value on your guys' side, like just let us know. I know we're talking, and I know we're talking about and really excited about the second Fake Money experience, which is coming in October. Guys, there's a lot of really cool things coming down the line with Lucas and 1971 and Crypto Labs. For everybody that's watching on the recording side, we will put the links for Lucas's community if you guys want to go check it out. Highly recommend it. Always stand behind it. And dude, I
highly recommend everyone go to the live event. Why I say that is even as a guest there, whichever, like I got as much as I think anyone there because I'm a student for life, and it's like 1 or 2 little connections were made, and you find someone who's 10 steps ahead of you, and I came home and I told the girlfriend, I'm like, dude, we're leveling our shit up. Like I met a dude who's wearing this watch, this, that. I've always wanted this watch, buy the watch, this, that. Now the connection is made here. Oh, that's an idea I've never thought of. And I'm like, I got probably $100,000 of value. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Like it was probably worth 100 grand to me. And I was very fortunate that I didn't have to pay the couple $100 it cost to come or whatever it was. I'm just like, every time I go to a live event, I don't care what it is, I always get a ton out of it. So I'm excited to see people there.
It's going to be, especially the second one, because now we have a foundation coming into the second one that we didn't have on our first one. So the second one, like some of the speakers that are coming, and I mean, some of the speakers that were coming are like the type of guys where everyone's going to sign an NDA like before he speaks. Like they're these big giants out there, not even necessarily in like crypto, but like guys that are operating at a level that I'm striving for. So
pretty cool.
I'm excited about it. Lucas, thanks again, man. Greatly appreciate it. We'll talk again soon. I've got to walk all the way over there to turn this off.
I'll hang out until you do. Nice and awkwardly here.
You can do that, or you can jump, man. Like whatever's easiest.
Yeah.
But